Does it work? Yeah, it might. It might. Right? Um, Yes, so I'm live. Switched machines, and this is an entirely new setup and everything. So I am a little bit lost, but I hope things are fine. I hope my sound and image don't lag too much. Good morning, everyone. So yeah, I decided I would do this live stream thing, and then well, I did that yesterday, basically when I did the release presentation stream thing, and then after I did late afternoon yesterday, I also decided that it was time for me to switch machines. So I made this switch so that I replaced my old machine with a totally new machine, which I've been sort of working on for several weeks. So it wasn't sort of a spur of the moment, but anyway, so I had to get everything working on this new thing, to all the software and drivers and cams and everything, and of course the setup for OBS and everything. But I believe I might be almost everything is working. So sure, and I did my first pull request with the new machine yesterday, and it builds and runs, and it seems to be. I can run my VMs. Yeah. I think most of my stuff is up and running, and I can see people are in the chat as well. So hello. I am going to use this layout quite a lot today, I think. So you'll see the chat in the screen as well, and this just helps us, so we can chat, discuss whatever. Hello. I'm also going to. I don't have any particular plans for today, except that I know that I have a few bugs. I have my own PRs pending. I've got a possible bug report over Twitter this morning that I've been sort of looking into. Yes, I so remember RMS giving me that. Yeah, so I was part of the team inviting RMS back in the day, well, 12 years ago, to do a talk in Stockholm. And when he was on stage and I was introducing him, I explained to the audience that we as an organization, the FOSS Stockholm organization, and we are called FOSS Stockholm. What do you do? What does FOSS stand for? It stands for free and open source. So I said that out loud to the audience, and RMS told me that we should never use the word open source. Well, he didn't only tell me, he told the entire audience, like 1,500 people. It was, well, or 1,000. I don't remember. It was packed. It wasn't completely full, but yes, it was fun. Well, I can be sure that RMS will never see this, but he is a well, I don't think anyone would object if I call him a difficult person, but he certainly is a difficult personality to work with, to be near, to be associated with, to do anything with, and even to explain in Swedish what your organization name is called. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about him. He has sort of, I think, maybe rightfully, not had a very forward position recently. So everyone, I'm here to do some curl stuff. So I brought up a separate browser here. Let me see where that is. I have too many things on my screen. And of course, before anyone asks, what you're seeing on the screen here, sorry, I'm going to have to do some separate chatting as well. Well, as you know, I'm always on IRC in the curl channel as well. So if you ever feel the need to chat about curl, we're on IRC. And anyway, so I have this separate. What you're seeing on screen here is a special selection of windows from my screen. It doesn't look like this on my screen. I've just selected a few windows to show you. That's why. Yeah. So I have some dedicated windows, so I don't have to show you my entire screen, because my entire screen is messy. I show you the dedicated window. So I'm going to go to GitHub because this is where I do a lot of my life, looking at, in particular, then the issues tab on GitHub. And in case you see anything on GitHub that you don't recognize from your GitHub, it might be that I have some special magic stuff enabled somewhere, but don't tell that to anyone, because I'm not supposed to show any magic stuff to anyone. So I hope I won't do that. But sometimes I don't even know myself if I have magic stuff enabled. So where am I? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to look into this GNU-TLS crash. I might just, we could just start with that and follow along. Crash with no ALPN. Let me first mark it as a TLS one and as a crash bug. So that one, so we get them tagged correctly, so we can find stuff like this afterwards. Okay, so let's first do a build with GNU-TLS and make sure that, or just see if we can reproduce this. Moving a little few things around. So here's my, I do most of my stuff build from my terminal. So this is my checkout. I have a I have a pending. I worked on a little suspected URL parser bug this morning, so I added a test. So let me make a branch URL or lib1560 add test. Let me just first add a test using in the user info in I can come back to this particular one later. So okay, I've just made a branch commit, did that change there, and I have this alias. Yes, well, I have CO, that's for checkout, yes, and I have this other alias which is called up. It actually makes a pull. It makes the up one. It makes a pull rebase. That's the one. So I have another. Here's my set of aliases. So when you see me do weird command line git stuff, I have these shortcuts, and especially for those things that I do a lot, I use these basically two-letter aliases. So it just makes me faster, and it makes things. So, and you can also see that I have stuff like this. I have a GPG sign automatically. I do a mail map for log, and a few other tiny git config stuff. Nothing magic. Just normal config stuff to make it more the way I like it. So anyway, so I also have here's my secret myconf directory. It's a directory quite a lot of. Let me remove my backups. Emacs saves backups as with that tilde. So here are pre-made command lines to build curl with different configure. So I have these, if I want to build with GNU-TLS, for example, I can do this. It's a command line that basically, uses with GNU-TLS. Do I even have that? I told you, this is my new machine. I think it's there. So I can just run that configure script to then build curl with GNU-TLS instead. Okay, no C errors, but I don't need that. So usually I have these huge set of pre-made command lines just to make it faster to switch back and forth between different commands. Like now, I want to build with GNU-TLS. I don't have to think about crafting the configure line much. I just run that script, and I'll just then verify, yes, it says enabled GNU-TLS, and let's clean everything so that we don't have anything, and boom, we can build with GNU-TLS. And if you've seen my previous coding live streams, it's been a while since I did any, but anyway, this thing builds faster. It is a pretty fast machine actually. So it actually builds. So you can see this if I do make clean, and then I can time the entire thing. So if I just make it shut up, I can do like this. So yes, 2.9 seconds. And I think if I redirect the output somewhere, it'll be even faster. So it's about 5 times faster than my previous machine in just pure make time. So this is GNU-TLS. So back to the bug. That's Gisla, is an old contributor. He's been around forever in the project. So he's a clueful guy. So he says this crashed. So let's try exactly that thing on my command line, but with my new build here with no crash. Of course, why would it crash? So let's see what it says. Does it say anything? Connected to IPv6, certificates, ciphers, no session ID, certificate information. Okay. Okay, so he says here, he says, without adding, I got some assert. That's weird. Yeah, I think. So ALPN, I guess some of you know ALPN is the application layer protocol negotiation. It's a TLS extension that basically allows curl to ask the server to, we can go with one of these protocols, you pick one you prefer, and that would then be, for example, H1 or H2. So that's the way how you negotiate H2 over the connection. So that's typically you say, I can go either H1 or H2, and the server says use H2, and we speak H2 from that point. So if you don't use ALPN, you can't do that negotiation, so you have to pretty much go with the lowest denominator. But no, this then smells like his build somehow. But how could GNU-TLS mess this up? I wonder if it's GNU-TLS version specific then. So I use 379, which is not the latest. Well, we can use a lot of valgrind, but or valgrind. I believe Julian says valgrind. I have a hard time to use that pronunciation, but I think it's valgrind. Yeah, we use a lot of valgrind, so I can use that as well, but you'll see that it won't make a difference in this case. I'm pretty sure everything should be valgrind clean. So yes, if we suspect any memory problems, we can run with that because it'll make sure that it's not a memory-related issue. But this isn't, and and especially now since we can even trigger the bug. I don't know really where to go next. Let's mean ALPN. Hello, Frank. So okay, I cannot reproduce. I'm gonna look at. Okay, I'm switching back. So he says here. If nread, yeah. We actually fight pretty hard. I mean, we do a lot of our tests and CI builds. They run the entire test suite with Valgrind enabled. So we really should not have any Valgrind problems for any normal cases. We also do a few these sanitizer builds with, I think, maybe both Clang and GCC. So we do memory sanitizer and the undefined behavior stuff. So most of those quote unquote easy things we have. I mean, we don't have them normally. We catch them in the CI builds. But of course, sometimes they slip through anyway, of course, right? Because tests are only tests. They tend to miss a few things every now and then. I have this lagging cold. That's why I'm having this slight annoying cough a little bit. It is about to pass, but I still feel it a little bit. Anyway, that's more sort of genuine me. So I cannot reproduce. I'm looking back to on the Firefox in the issue here. nread. Oh right, that was his. Is that a -1? That's a weird number. E4. So it's not a -1. It's like -16 plus 12. It's 28. -28. Yeah, you really got me in a really fine bug this morning. Well, he got the crash in transfer, and that's weird. Is empty data. nread is a signed variable. So if it reaches this point, it's really a negative. Wait a minute. I'm thinking, what kind of architecture is this? I figured it was Windows, but size T is. I'm thinking Win32. Yes, it's probably a 32-bit architecture, right? So size T is a 32-bit. maybe. Yep. .493 in transfer.c. 493. It is. Yeah, it is exotic with a 32-bit, and sometimes it's like you forget how things actually used to work back then. Oh, 32-bit, right? How big were all those types back then? But so he says it's 493 and it comes from 1113. Oh no, right, it comes from here, I guess. Yeah, so it crashes on that, and okay. nread, but nread comes from there. It's difficult. So yeah, it's yes, he has the newer GNU-TLS as well. It's at 380. I had 379. I believe the latest GNU-TLS might be a slight bump. Should I try? I wonder if I have it. Get reset hard origin master blah blah blah, and so I have a git clone of GNU-TLS, so I can build it from source. Or I've done it before, and rather this is actually a clone from an old machine, so that's why I brought over this as well. And I usually carry around, whenever I build stuff from source, I tend to generate a my configure file, which is the configure line I used when I built it, so that I could easily do it again, like this when I rerun everything, rebuild the configure, and then rerun the configure and do a make install again in a local. And I usually do like this, so I have a prefix in my home dir with like this build GNU-TLS, so I install everything, install this one there, GDocisize. Where is that? So I go to my old machine and I search for DKDoc ice. In which package? GNU-TLS is actually kind of a pain to build because it depends on 48 different things, and like this you can never ever really remember which one. I remember this. Alright, but I can never remember. I think GTK, and this is going to be a lot of them. Okay. GTK GTK. It's called GTKdoc, I think. GTKdoc. No, it's not. I'm checking on this. The one called Storebror here is my old machine, so I'm trying to see what kind of. Okay. could be an old package, but I googled for it and someone said it was that, but it might be wrong. GTKDoc tools. Yes, but why didn't I find? Okay, so thank you. Cache search GTKDoc tools. Right, there's one. So let me install. Let me install that. Boom. Switch over to that. Rerun configure. Or rather auto reconf. Blah 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 blah. Lots of warnings. I remember this from the last time I did this as well. It's a pretty scary look, but let's ignore that and we run configure for GNU TLS. Brum, 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 like that, of course. libev and I'm pretty sure there's a libev dev. Yeah, you know, I'm an old guy. I always use I always use su and not sudo because I don't know. It's stuck in my backbone somehow. Yeah, for some reason I've learned to do apt instead of apt-get, but I guess that's just because it's shorter. So I'm I'm a sucker for shorter. Libev, can it be called libev dev? Libev dev, yeah, let's try that. And we try configure again. So yes, I'm building this from source. I bet it won't reproduce anyway, but if it reproduces, I think building it from source will be convenient. It'll help debugging it. Okay, so it worked fine. So let's use a lot of cores to build it. Okay. gperf. Why does it need gperf in a normal build? And it's called gperf. All right, right. I forgot about that. It's a hash generator, right? gperf. Installing that and do it again. Fatal error. I like the sound of that. No. GL. You like this kind of error, right? I have no insight into how they do things, so I'm just grabbing blindly here. So yes, there is no. I suppose that's I suppose it is supposed to get generated in the build somehow, but it certainly doesn't do that for me. Verify high. So this is the file on line 38. Yeah. GL. kind of annoying. Should we try to... If I just check out a branch from 308, I can just see if it makes any difference. Yeah, it seems like they forgot to add a package. I mean, that's why I figured I could at least just try the tagged version first, because I think it's fair in case they, I mean, made a mistake after the release. But if this also has this problem, then my annoyance level goes up a notch. But not that anyone cares about that. What does even GL stand for, I wonder? I guess somewhere in here you could get a clue. Or not. Make clean. Make SJ10. GL linked hash dot. Yeah. Fun. Hey, GNU-TLS people. GNU, yeah, it could be GNU-lib, just a glib, right? But you'd think that it would just magically fix that in the build. Is there a bootstrap or anything? Yeah, there is. I guess I should do that, maybe. Because maybe that has changed since the last time. Or maybe that does some magic. Look, does a lot of magic. Woohoo! Should I run out the reconf after this? Or does it do this automatically for me? Oh, look at that. It does a lot of things. Don't forget to. And didn't already show this list. Updating. Oh, those are GL things. Oh, and now it runs out the reconf. Yeah, it's a little bit like make world. GNU-TLS is a little bit like the world, actually. Seems to use half of the world at least. And now you can run configure. Okay. Let us try configure. Boom. Rebuilding things from source. That's what you tuned in for today, right? So let's build it. And let's see, no GL error anymore. But some other really nasty warnings. They just scrolled by. Let's ignore them. There, that's the advantage of a quick build, right? It'll just flash by immediately, and let's not bother about that. Well, it's not our problem. So install, make install, and I have this custom prefix, so it'll install them in that in my build GNU-TLS home directory. We switch over to the curl directory. My conf GNU-TLS. So we can do like this. And with GNU-TLS in my home build GNU-TLS directory. Yeah, that's my name, right? Daniel Stenberg. And you can see I have an alias for building. I don't building on my directory. I don't even do make. I do B, and I have another alias. I have B for building in my directory, and I have BT for building my tests directory. So I do B to just, and it actually does a little more than just. Well, it used to do. It used to run the copyright check on the files that were changed as well, because we used to bother about the copyright year ranges, but we don't anymore. So nowadays, just well, I run make SJ22 on, and then I have the similar for BT. Basically, just changes directory and builds in my test directory. Okay. Do we have the new? We do the GNU TLS 3.8.0, and there we have the vg.no, but no crash. And no ALPN, no crash. So no, I really cannot reproduce. Okay, let me tell Gisle that in a comment. Boom, boom. Always unfortunate and annoying because it makes everything more difficult, but what can I do? I've tried. I tried. Let's switch over to something else instead. We could go just check out the pull request status. Basically, I did this yesterday. Someone figured out a crash. Another crash when you use the here's the bug report. It's actually a seg fault when we use this option, but you can't create the file. Extremely silly, but and this is of course a regression because of another fix that was not done correctly a while ago. But anyway, I submitted this pull request to fix this. It's very simple. You can see the diff here. Wait a minute. Okay. Some silly code QL false positive. The code QL code scanner is a little bit over eager to warn on stuff like fopen. Especially since I already had an fopen there and we've all deemed it correct. So when I just update fopen, why does it warn about it? But it does. So I basically just I added this check. Don't close a null pointer. It doesn't work. It'll crash. And this is in the command line tool, so we don't consider it a security problem. And it's and here's a test case for exactly this case. Just use the capital D to a file name that you can't create because the directory doesn't exist. So it'll fail to do that fopen and boom. So let's copy the branch name. And you know, some people ask me about how I merge pull requests, and this is how I do that. So this is the branch that you just saw. So if I tend to just do like this. First rebase the branch so that I have the latest on top of master. So sure, and often like I can word the particular commit that I'm about to commit, like this one, to make sure that it is described properly. It is credited to whoever needs the credits. Fixes, and it actually And then fixes here is the bug that it fixes, and closes is the PR that is that provides the fix. So in this case, this is the bug report in 10.570 and the PR is 10.571, and it's just avoid fclose null on a bad header dump file. It's, I mean, short and sweet, and I think I provide the test in a separate commit to make it cleaner. Yes, sometimes I add the same one closes, so I do closes in both, mostly to make sure that there's a pointer to the GitHub thing that provided the commit itself. So later when I generate the release notes, if this becomes an item in the release notes, it'll contain a pointer back to this. So just makes it easier for everyone to so I'll show you how I do new branch in a second, because I'm sure I will do. But pretty much I clean up the PR like this, and you see I don't really hesitate of doing a rebase. So now it's actually not the exact same branch anymore because I've done a rebase. It's since I did that yesterday, and I do this and I clean up the commit messages and make sure that they're sort of, you know, project policies compliant and have the correct keywords for fixes and reported or credits, co-authored by, tested by, everything, so that we give proper credit to everyone who has actually contributed to the submitting of the issue, fixing the problem, and all that. Because, you know, I think that's the correct things to do. So I switch back to master, switch over, and I merged that branch. So I worked on this branch, I merge it over here, and now it's in branch in master, right? And then I just push it. Boom. And now everyone is going to, if you're not seen this before, you will see that in this issue, then here's the pull request. So if I check the pull request now here, it'll in a second wake up and say, boom, it was now closed and unmerged commits before, because you saw that I did that rebase, and so it's what I pushed is not an identical copy of this PR, because it's, but I don't care. So I delete the branch and it'll just be like that. And over in Git land, in my local thing, I can also, or I should rather, delete my local branch. And I can also actually do a remote or prune origin, so that I can also remove the now dead branches, remote branches. And as you can see, I hadn't done this in a few days, so I removed a bunch of other old dead remote branches. So no, I never branch, or rather I never merge anything on GitHub. I don't merge, I don't branch on GitHub, I don't merge on GitHub. I use GitHub to view it, work on them, but I always merge like this, because I want complete control of all the messages, all the content, and I don't feel that I have that control and sort of can be as picky on GitHub, because I think GitHub is, sure, fancy UI, but I cannot make sure that my messages are sort of following the project policy. Therefore, I think I like my style of doing it because it's convenient. I mean, it's easy and convenient because it's. I think I have tools for this, so it works fine. And I'm a sucker for having really, so, you know, if you look at the curl commit history like this, here are all the commits, you know, done recently. I like the style, I like the readability, and I like that I can, you know, scroll a bit down here and I can find a commit like this. Oh, this one. And I can actually, from the commit message, understand it. It's written in a concise, you know, traditional format, and we follow the same thing all the time, so it makes it very readable, understandable, and this single commit explains this, and the message is clear and explains everything about the commit. I think it works well. I would use the GitHub UI if I knew. Well, WS is WebSockets. WebSockets. So I would use the GitHub UI if I knew I could trust that it would provide and make the messages the exact way I want them to be, but I don't trust it because I haven't sort of felt that it can. For example, I want them line wrapped properly so that in a 80 column terminal I want to be able to browse the messages. So I want the particular messages like these to be line wrapped at column 72, for example. And how can I do that on GitHub? I have no idea. I don't think I can. So I don't use GitHub to do merging. And then I suffer slightly, or everyone suffers slightly, because now it says closed here. It doesn't say merged. So if you're unused to this behavior, it says closed up here as well, but it's not closed, it's actually merged. But there's really no good... the only proper indication is that it says closed in this commit. And if you check this commit, you'll see that on this pop-up window, it's actually, you can see that it is this particular PR. Okay, merged one PR. There are more to go. So as you can see here, there are many pending PRs. Some of them are a little stale. Some of them maybe not too important. I can make another. I can merge another one. I haven't really checked Jay's comment here. So this user with the awesome username of 2022-1022 right, so I can do the rebase merge on GitHub. The problem, I think my more larger problem is to make sure that the commit message is there and not only correct but also correctly formatted. And I mean, I think actually GitHub is a little bit lame in that aspect. You can even right now make a comment on someone's commit message, right? Because the commit message is not even part of doing a code review on GitHub. But the commit message becomes the original message sort of appearing at the top of a pull request. But for example, if you fix your commit and you update it and you update your commit message and you do force push, there's no way that you can see that commit message even. So I think it's rather lame. I think it's a sort of a shortcoming of GitHub in general, because you can't say, hey, you should maybe rephrase it like this, or did you think about adding this to the message, or maybe even the picky style, you did a spelling error in the commit message, maybe you should fix that. So I think GitHub leaves a lot to desire regarding the actual commit message part. So he wants to do an f-reopen. Yeah, f-reopen. F-reopen. Do you think we can use f-reopen like this? Maybe we can. Let me just read up on the functionality again. So f-reopen. Yeah, should be. Maybe that's the better way to do it. And if we do it like that, it's a bit of a bigger cleanup. Nicer. I think I like it. I'm thinking what to do then. Okay, so if we would do first switch to the branch, and I had this lovely misspelled branch name, but hey, doesn't matter. It's just a branch name. I usually make my branches. So I don't know if you saw it, but I'm actually working in the curl repository, which is actually the way people say you shouldn't work with GitHub. You should have your own cloned version tree, forked. And then work in that, and then do pull requests against that. But I'm actually working in the curl tree for more of a boring reason. So I right now I then create branches with my own username like this. So I do so that when you see branches in the tree, you see that it's sort of they originated from me. Well, curl. Well, so what? There's really no such thing as a broken certificate chain, or rather, if it's a chain, curl verifies that you have the certificate, right? Or it verifies that it ends in a trusted leaf. So it's not curl's job to verify other than that. But so I think it's. I mean, sure, you could imagine that we could create an option for curl to do that, but it feels like. I mean, the best way is rather to go to one of those SSL's verification sites, because they will verify all of that much better and with more details and reports and everything. I think it's a bit of a stretch for curl to go overboard to do that. So back to my branching. So it's really no downside. The only downside maybe is that I'm sort of forcing people my branches onto people that actually clone the curl repository. So if I push this and someone makes a clone of this just now, they will get my branch, and I will remove it in tomorrow or the day after, and like that. Right, there are many good SSL testing sites, or TLS testing and certificate verification sites and everything. And as Frank mentioned, scripts and tools for it. I think that is way better than having curl actually go further than it has to be. Curl verifies certificates and certificate chains exactly as sort of mandated as for a TLS client. But going beyond that is, I'm not sure it's curl's job. Yeah, I don't have to. I mean, I've sort of just gotten accustomed to do that git push origin branch name. I could do some shortcuts and avoid the origin thing. Yeah. but it's not like I mean I have command completion. I just press tab. And I usually it's not a big deal. So back to my standard R thing. Yes, f reopen. So in this particular check, so we got a bug report actually. So it says that if you use this option --standard R, which I mean, why do you use even why do we even have this option? And I think I introduced it like 23 years ago. Basically because on Windows you don't typically have, you can't redirect standard error like you can on all decent systems, you just do like this, curl whatever, and then do to standard error on this file, right? This is how you do it on all sensible systems in the world, but you cannot do this on Windows. So in order to help Windows people do something you would do like this: standard error dot text, and then do whatever. And so yes, and sure, you can do this on any other system as well, of course, because this option then works in curl independently of where. But this allows even people on Windows to redirect standard, the text curl sends to standard error to somewhere else. And then someone figured out that if you use curl standard error like this, standard error blah blah blah, and then you use this option and you say, I want to send this write out option to standard error like this, hello, and then do whatever. If you do like this, which is a perfectly legitimate command line, if I use 2 dashes, it actually doesn't. This particular one output, which is then supposed to go to standard error, it will not go to the file. It will go to standard error, even though you use standard error here because of reasons. That's what this particular branch is for, to fix that. Yes, Frank was involved in that. And anyway, maybe then as Jay suggested in the PR is to fix the handling of standard error, to do an F reopen on standard error and to sort of solve it once and for all in a more of a global take on how to do standard error. And feels attractive, so I'm going to make an attempt to do that. And Nisos asked about Quick. So we're working pretty hard, and Stefan Eising is working extra hard on making sure that curl's Quick and HTTP3 support is really good, and we're working this hopefully with the hope of sort of removing the experimental label this spring for H3 support in curl. So it's certainly becoming better and better pretty fast, so you should really try it out. If you haven't built curl with H3 and tried it, do that. It's fun, and it works, and it's pretty stable, and we're of course want to make it even more stable and functional. And I don't think I've actually tried that on this particular machine yet, so it could be an adventure to just see what happens. No, Alias. Yeah, I saw that because I'm a maintainer of Alias myself, but I can't even I don't even know what it's called on Debian. Let's get the dev package. Yeah, so I'm rebuilding curl with ngTCP2 support, ngTCP2 being a quick library. So when I do this, it should say HTTP3 enabled with these 2 libraries. Oh, right, it also enables WebSockets. That's also another experimental feature. So this enables both of them. And then it should say like this. Where does it say? Yep, ngTCP2, ngHTTP3. Oh, right. So now you can you redirect standard error in the command shell, or do you need PowerShell or something to redirect standard error? It really doesn't matter. I already provided the option now, so we're stuck on supporting it. So it's, even if I once did it for Windows, it now doesn't really matter because now it exists in curl and we have to support it. So anyway, so this is how you build with curl's HTTP3 support, and then it also says HTTP3 here among features. And then you can do HTTP3. What can we use? Google? Can we do that with Google? We could. So it says HTTP3 there. Boom. And as you can see, it's really hard to spot any difference in HTTP3 or HTTP2. And of course, we make a pretty big effort to make sure that that it's hidden. I mean the differences. So it really looks the same, and it's meant to feel and look, and the experience should be the same. And I don't know if you followed it, but H3 now, if you use this option now with the current curl, it'll actually also try, if it fails, it'll try the older versions slightly delayed at the same time in parallel. So if in case H3 one fails, it'll use one of the older ones. Like if I go to some site that we could suspect doesn't support HTTP 3, it'll fall back and instead use HTTP 2 in this case. It could also actually fall back even to HTTP 1 in case HTTP 2 is not negotiated. So I'm just showing you because it makes it easier to use the option, because it'll try H3 and use it if it works. Otherwise it'll fall back and use older versions. Unless you use HTTP 3 only, in which case it'll fail. Bam. Handshake timeout. It's a little bit annoying that we have to rely on a timeout for the handshake to detect it doesn't work, but in some cases that's the only way to do it. You know, we've kidnapped icing away from Apache, so we should be happy. So yeah, so that was H3. So in particular, I did this test 978 to verify. I'm back to the standard R thing. So this using standard R to log, redirect the output to a file, and then use this option, also saying it should go to standard R, and it should then end up in this file and not on standard R like it used to do. So now if we 978, let's just see how fast it can rebuild the entire test suite. The test suite takes longer than curl itself to build, just because it builds a lot of different binaries that could be tested or should be. So yeah, this is the new test case, and just verifying this particular fix. But so here's the command line parser. So if we would do, instead of doing this, basically this is Jay's proposal to, instead of doing fopen here, to just open a new one and use a new option everywhere, do use an reopen. Right, and then you have to do standard R as well. So what do we do then? And now right, and from that point standard R is now a new file, so now we can actually use standard R everywhere. I think, right? It's actually pretty. So this error, we can skip this errors thing. Errors. This one, error stream. We remove it and we build again, and now we of course get some errors, but now we need to fix them. Yeah, because now this can use standard R instead, because now we have reopened it. not also known as it is. Oh, right, it needs to close it, of course. But maybe we could... So I need to remember it. But I could do it, I can just change name. Don't think I need to have that. Yes, I do, because of how it looks below. F error, F opened. Becomes quite easier to handle error outputs. Yeah, a little bit, but I renamed it F error, F opened. Wait a minute, it makes this to is that how we document it? If the file name is a plain dash, it is instead written to standard out. I actually think it was mostly an oversight why I did it like that from the beginning, and I didn't use f reopen. But I honestly can't remember. We did this, I mean, very early on. I say we because I think I did it. Added in curl 6.2. Yeah. 6.2 was early. That was before 2000. I'm pretty sure. I sometimes go back to this release list. 6.2 October 99. So yeah, 22 and a half years ago. Boom. And back to my code there for standard error. Yeah, standard out. So, but then I need to do how do I redirect standard error to standard out this way? Because I can't, right? Because I cannot just do f reopen then, because that's a file. That's Yeah. But how do I open? I mean, it's already open. So should I then use on F? No. Sure, but they duplicate file descriptors, not file streams, right? And this is the same thing with F. What's the other one called? FD open. So it's harder since standard out is not a file descriptor; it's a file stream. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Right, there's a potential that I could do redirect the file descriptor, but it feels a little bit of a doesn't feel portable. It feels like I would change something underneath that's not guaranteed to work. Okay, no. Let's sorry. Let's revert that approach and go back to what I started with because I can't fix it. I'll ask. I'll go back and just ask Jay if he has an idea for that. Yes, that's a cool idea. I almost implemented it like that now until I realized standard R redirects to standard out, and I can't figure out a clean way to do this if we use the F reopen approach. Can you? Okay, well that saved me from having to work on that. I'll just go back to okay, I can do like this. Debug F reopen a ref take. Just to keep the commit, I can just remove the commit just in case. Yes, I think since that fiddles with the file descriptor and we're working with the file streams, I rather not go that way. I think it's better to then, since we already have the code to do it like we do, it's not a big sacrifice, I think, to just stick to that. So unless we come up with a better, awesome idea, so let's not go crazy. So instead, I'll go to the next one. Pull request. Okay, so that was mine. I'll save that. Save. Where are we with this? Eight failing. Scan build. All right. This is an old scan build warning. We already fixed this. And I believe that's a bogus warning, right? Stir to L. If end pointer is not null, blah blah blah. Yep, it's a bogus warning from the compiler. Clang. Bogus warning, but it's not the latest Clang version. They might have fixed it. Back on this, close that, close that. So, another pull request. This one is from Stefan. So, wasn't it about the end pointer? Anyway, it's fixed anyway in current codes. It's we don't have to stick to that discussion. So usually when I merge someone else's branch, I can do it two ways. Basically, here's Ising's pull request. It looks like this. It makes pipe wait a little bit better. So I've reviewed this before. It's actually kind of a small fix and then a slightly larger extension of test suite. So I think it's fine. And then I usually do like this. So here's the PR, and to merge it, yeah, I can do exactly like this, like it says here. Create my own local branch and then merge the entire thing into that branch and then work in that branch. But usually, since I'm when I'm up to date with everything on my master branch, I can just do this, and I can just pull his branch into my master. I rebase it, reword it, because I want to make sure that it follows our style properly. So no final period. Sorry, I mentioned before I want to have a column wrap on 72. So yeah, it could actually like that. And then he has a good and long explanation. I leave that, and it's 10.0456. So make sure that we close the correct PR. And also because this thank you. Yeah, sometimes I actually also that's a good thing. Maybe I don't have iSpell. Well, I do. So I could spell check it. Sometimes a little bit annoying because spelling is found another one then. So subsequent. Okay. And I make sure that I do a proper closes, because if I do the proper closes, when I push this, GitHub will close it for us. So like this. So then I push, and I just, I had a push in command line history just from before, so I'll just redo that, and boom, over in Firefox land, it'll then just take a second and shoom, closed. Then I try to say thanks for things that we've merged, and we are one pull request less. And maybe I could show you here. So I've done now. You can see here I've done a few merges already today, or two. I've merged 2 pull requests. Anyway, so I I do these. So I generate the release notes automatically, and when I update them, then they're a single file in their release notes, right? So they're called release notes in uppercase. So this is the current status of it. So when I sync this every once in a while, so maybe every 3, 5, 7 days, something, depends. I try to, when there's an intense traffic or activity, I tend to do it a little bit more often so that people can keep up. So if you just, when you clone Git from the curl source, you can see that it's roughly up to date with the bug fixes we've done. And anyway, so I generate that. So basically, I just rerun the script release notes and then reload this one, and then this is based on the commit history, of course, and the keywords in there. So the references here to links down there, they are generated by the script because they are mentioned in the git commits. So usually I then know new entries are listed about this. I can remove that. Maybe I don't mention the test case, and then I have this cleanup function, and boom, because then it'll also sort them, because sorting groups them nicely. Yep. So that's how I typically do my release notes update, and then I can, for example, I have another script that is stupid. Why does it say this? Ambiguous argument. I need to figure that out. But anyway, it then lists all current contributors up to this point from the previous, from that tag. It's not supposed to say this fatal thing. I'm not sure why it says that. I'm not going to get into that. So then I usually update the contributors like as well. But I'm not gonna update that one just now, because I think we only did 2 things. I don't have to do it now. I can do it later. So let's see if there are more pull requests to fix. Well, I can go back to, so I got this bug report, or someone asked me this morning. I have a few branches in my local tree. No, where, which one? Yeah, I think it was this one. Someone asked me about a particularity, something. I can do rebase. About the curl URL parser, and it's basically, he used like this. He used actually if you provide a host name %25, he actually used like that. Host %25 to F, and then he used the host name example.com. What is that supposed? How is that supposed to work? And then I tried it, and it actually seemed to work. If you do that in curl's URL parser, so I created a test case where it actually uses then example.com %25 to F %40, because I threw in a %40 too, because that's an @ sign, and I just wanted to make sure that when the curl URL parser gets that URL and you ask for the pieces to be URL decoded on extraction, you extract this username example.com %2f @ and it's a little bit confusing, but the %25 there, that's URL encoded % sign, right? So %25 to F becomes %2f, and that's intended. So for all I can tell, this is correct and it works as intended. So I added this test case then just to make sure that it actually behaves like that. Oh, is it? Oh, thank you. It is, right, thanks. Maybe we should redirect that so that we don't get that fatal. Oh, well, you know, it's because of my switch between my machines. I did the switch yesterday, right? So I hadn't updated this particular machine, so I was on sync on the other one. It's actually my old machine is in this tab, so I could have done it. I could have ran the script properly on this machine, I think. Yeah. But that one is not up to date in the source. There. And now it's supposed to work fine here as Yep. Thanks, Frank. Mystery solved. Should possibly fix that script and just redirect the errors to somewhere not visible. Anyway, so I created this local. Maybe I should just I can add this test case. So this is, since I just created it locally, I can just create the pull request like this. I just push it, and over in Firefox land, it'll now say, "Ooh, we found a new push. Should I do a pull request?" Sure. Why not? Why not do a pull request? This is about tests, so why not do tests? It's about URLs, so I can put a label on the URL. Test URL, add test using %25 in user info. And I called it libc1560, which is, of course, incorrect. So let me just make sure that. So I update the commit message. So now, well, when I do that, I can force push a new version just to be. Since I discovered it so quickly, so now it'll show force pushed here. And I can, if I want to, update the description there as well. So, you know, I'm good at typos. I'm letting my fingers move faster than my brain so often. So, okay, I just wanted to check. Oh, we are at 26 updated packages on the downloads. Since I did a release yesterday, 26 updated ones on the download page. I think it's good. They are the yellow ones in the list. My bot that checks for these runs, I think, twice a day. Looks good. And yeah, no CI jobs quite yet. Oh, that's the report on the crash with dump header. Sometimes people are very quick at closing their own issues. So like that, someone submits an issue, I submit a pull request that supposedly fixes the issue, and then the user says, great, and closes the issue, even before the PR has been merged or even is finalized. So it's a little bit, I know, sometimes people are very eager to just get rid of their issues. But it's fine. I will always I will still do the fixes keyword so that afterwards the pull request will still refer back to the issue, even if the issue is sometimes closed before the PR. Yeah. So where are we then? Fix compiler. Jay is good at pushing his own stuff. Here's a failed build of the quiche, talking about HB3. Why did that fail? I saw this before. I wonder if the 3001 test case failed. So a failed test case is sometimes a bit ugly to figure out and look at it, because, well, you know, this is how it looks like. All the tests, and number, and description, and some weird letters describing exactly what is tested. Not that it's very important. And then it says OK, and then just a counter, some stats, so you can see, you know, how long it's taken, how long it expects the remaining time to be. And then it comes to 3001, and then it just goes wrong. Protocol failed. Yeah, something went really wrong. Server glitch, total curl failure. Address already in use. Something's got wrong here. I've been setting up the server somehow. Yes, our CI builds are sometimes a little bit flaky. Well, some errors are hard to figure out and nail down. But then, especially since when we run the test suite, we run up. We invoke a bunch of test servers that actually run real servers in these CI environments, and they typically run on random ports, and they try to figure out a port to use. And in some cases, they can't. Some of the servers we use, they cannot just say pick a random port. We have to just try different ports until it works, and sometimes that logic glitches a little bit. It seems annoying. So where are we then? Jay can probably merge his own. So and there's no immediate awaiting review from me. This is an old PR, as you can see. It's actually over a year old now. It is implementing this new option. I'm hesitating around that because I don't feel that we have a strong demand or desire to have yet another option for this. So that's why it also says needs votes, because I wanted people to speak up in favor of this in case some people actually want it. And well, there is one thumbs up here. Sometimes it's hard to say if we should merge things. It might be a good idea, it might not be a good idea. Sometimes I feel like I don't really know if it's a good idea or not, and then I hesitate. And that's why we added this needs vote label. Basically, it says, sure, it might be a good idea, but if you think it's a good idea, speak up and press a thumbs up or argue for it and explain why it's a good idea and why we want it merged, because we're not all convinced yet. I had something else in mind. I forgot about what it was. We can look at the issues again. I cannot reproduce. Right, progress meter. This is. We also have. I have a few other things we can work on. Fun. Okay, first, this is a new 8 hours ago, a new bug report about even when silent during FTP directory listing. Huh. That's curious. FTP directory listing. Where do we find an FTP directory listing? If I recall things, we can do FTP on Funet still. I don't think I set up a local FTP server for myself here yet. I think funet.fi still has no. Apparently not. Maybe they were called something else. Sometimes a little bit hard. So can anyone come up with a FTP server live out there? GNU has FTP servers, yes. Right, FTP funet.fi. That works, great, thank you. Oh, I'm so blind. It actually uses that host name in the report. I didn't. Sometimes I should just read more before I go ahead and do things. So it basically says this parallel silent output directory listing. Yep, there's an progress meter there, but and apparently he says that we can use no progress meter to get rid of it, and that's true. We can. Okay. Parallel operate, I think. Parallel add parallel transfers. Parallel transfers. This is the one that runs parallel transfers. Progress meter. So the progress, the logic for the progress meter is entirely different and completely separate for doing parallel transfers. I mean, I guess that's no surprise, but since we then have to update or show any number of concurrent transfers on that single line instead of when you do them serially, there's one at a time, right? So there's one line for one transfer, and then the next transfer gets a new line or a new. So that's easier. For parallel, we have to make them all transfers use a single line. Progress meter, is it that function? This is no, I think it actually here's the function we set when we do parallel transfers. Where do we do the logic? Yeah, Funet has certainly been around for quite some time. I remember it too from the early days. There was a Sunet FTP server as well, this sort of the Swedish alternative, but they shut off the FTP server a while ago. So now I believe the FTP host name is now an HTTP server only. Basically one of those old file archive styles of hosts, providing a lot of software. And we for a long time we actually uploaded curl releases to Sunet as sort of a official mirror to offload our server, so that if you wanted to get it, you could get it from the mirror from them, since that's a university or sort of university network. They would host it for us, so you wouldn't use our precious bandwidth to download stuff. But that was a long time ago. Nowadays our bandwidth is not so precious, since we are sponsored by Fastly. Fastly eats our bandwidth. If no process, return false. Yes, and it should, or global silent. Is it like that? Ta-da! Yes. It might have been a recent regression. I changed a few things around recently, because someone pointed out a few mistakes we had, like if you do this. Yes, that works as well, because then you do the reverse of the silent. So our options that are marked as purely booleans, like silent is a boolean, you could do the reverse of that boolean by saying no in front of it. So yes, kind of a tiny change, but we like that. So fresh new pull request, right? I create my own branch here in my local Git, and I give it a fancy name, parallel progress. Yeah, and the name is not terribly important. So I have this branch, I have this change, tool progress, shut off progress meter for silent. When should mention that it's for parallel transfers, because this is already done properly for non-parallel, I think. Because if I try the same thing without parallel, yes, and no silent, woohoo! Oh, and then back, of course. So here's the particular fix, and then I want to say it fixes issue 10573, and we want to give proper credit, right? Reported by. Who reported this? It was Think. I have to copy the name. Sometimes when people use these usernames, I add sort of domain where the username belongs, because sometimes we get the username from other services and it could duplicate them. And of course we realize that by using usernames rather than email addresses or full names, we don't really know if this person actually committed before or helped out before. So is the audio not synced properly? And you tell me that now. I think I can possibly change. Let me. So I can. How much is the just a second? That's quite a lot. But if I can try to change it a little bit. Is it better? Whoa. Or did I do it the other way around? What do you think is impossible to get right? I can compensate a little bit at least. I actually added 500 milli to the audio, so I think that's could be better. Okay, so anyway, here's the pull. So the pull request. I'm pushing the pull request. So yeah, I'm pushing that over there, and then we switch to the Firefox. It's over here. Pull request. There it is. Boom. Command line tool fixes that. Easy peasy. Yeah, so that's another pull request. Fun. I can also sometimes assign myself to the issue. Sometimes, usually I don't, but because I don't know, I forget about it. But sometimes I do that to just make so it's more visible in this layout exactly that someone is actually taking care of this. Okay. You know, maybe I should bite. These two are really complicated. Even that one is also complicated. As you can see, they're from the same user. This user with this funny username, he's on a mission to file issues about inconsistencies or possibly weird behavior in curl command line options. And well, he's good at that. So, and he's also not very good at English. So I think he's a Russian native. So we're having a bit of a language barrier sometimes. He submits issues. I don't understand at all what he's talking about. So I had to sort of decipher his command lines and see what he means. And usually I think he has a point. So it's not that he's, barking up the wrong tree completely, but it's sometimes a bit of a challenge to understand exactly what the problem is or what the source of the confusion is. So let's get this one, for example. So here's a fun case, and here's also it is a challenging thing to say what's right or wrong, and I'll show you. This is kind of a fun. How should curl work really? Let me just go back to the master branch. So if you do curl, you run curl like this, and you do, for example, we use a host that doesn't exist. It returned 6. That's the couldn't resolve. Fine. And then you do, but if you would do another transfer next to this, http se://localhost. This is a different error, right? So if I do this, what happens? Boom. I get 2 different errors. And what's the return code from this? It's number 1. It's a second fault, right? So if I would do them in the other order, if I would do the one there, boom, I would get them in the other order, and I would instead get number 6. Okay, so that's the last error. But to complicate matters, so you have, that's 2 errors, right? And we get the last one returned. So, but if I then use the actual working one in the end, and we could redirect the output somewhere so that we don't even see it. Boom. The output is for the first URL. That didn't work. So let's do that like this. We could even tell it to shut up. Anyway, now it returns what? 0. Because the third one works. So it's number 1, number 3, and 0. As in sort of error codes from the transfer. Okay. Confusing, but since the last one worked, it'll return 0. So sure, and if I would add a fourth one here, you know, GitHub, and let's use a port number that can't exist. Boom, and what do we get then? Oh, we are back on error 3. Okay, so we have error 6, 1, 3. And 0. But now, as you get the point. The last one that is the one that actually returns to the shell. If I remove the working one, and not shut up, we can see it more clearly, like this. Beam, and this is. I don't have to use my build for this. It actually has worked like this for a while. But okay, fine. Let's complicate matters. This is for transfers, right? Or are they? If you do that like this, next, next is really just a fancy way for curl to pretty much reset the state of the command line parser to offer, so you could sort of do things again, because some options to the curl parser, if you use them many times, they would just add a append, right? So if you would use, for example, -d many times, like you would d hello, and then you would use d again, nice. They would add to the same data. But if you wanted to do a second request, then to do another post data, you couldn't just do new, because it would append to the other ones, unless you do next, which resets the states of the command line parser. So now the new one will be a fresh new data that you could send to localhost. So that's the point with -- next, right? It's actually a shortcut like that as well if you want to run, but that's kind of unreadable. So this should work. And if I spell that wrong, we get number 6 back. And what's the error code from the command? We get number 6. Everything makes sense, but hey, what if we remove the URL from the last one? What do we get? Look, no URL specified, because then we reset the state at the -- next. We added some options, but there's no URL associated with this, and that's wrong, right? No URL specified. So, which error code? Any guesses? Should we say number 3? Yes. And you could argue that that's not correct. If you would do like this, you get number 2. And you get number 2 when you don't use a URL. Right? So if you don't have a URL like this, you get number 2. But if you use echo flocal next, you don't get a number 2, even if echo. You get a number 6, because that's the first error, not the second error. So, and you could argue, I mean, possibly it says it's not really a transfer. I should just accept that it should, in this later case, like this, it should return 2 and not number 6. And I should just fix it. I think it'll be more. Having just explained all of this, I think that's the logical thing for it to do. So somewhere in here, there's some weird logic to make this happen. No URL specified. Yes, I think it arrives at this point. Should I just... I just verify. This is the... So this is my favorite way of solving this. I just do a breakpoint at tool operate. Line 2518. Well, I can go with 17 as well. Boom. No URL specified. And then it returns curl e failed init. And I think that is the number 2. Curl failed init. It is the number 2 error code. To enable, I just wanted to make it slightly more readable for you. Now it shows the code in GDB. Yeah, there are like 100 return codes, so, and since you have an unlimited number of URLs you can put on the command line, so it's we have to pick one return code to return. And I think I think the current system actually makes sense. It's just that this particular no URL thing that I think it is different because it never even starts to transfer, so it doesn't add to the return code management, I believe. Return code. Yeah, that's the previous return code. That's number 6. Resolve host. It's there. Yeah, well, all debugging comes to the question: does someone rely on this particular behavior? And sure, I mean that's always a risk, right? But I think as long as I think we should be consistent and of course stick to the documentation. You could, in this particular case, we could discuss what the documentation actually say. I think the documentation in this case is for the fail early option, which says if you use the fail early option, curl will instead return an error. No, right. It says when it describes how it usually works. By default, it will ignore errors if there are more URLs given, and the last URL's success will determine the error code curl returns. And note the phrasing here: the last URL's success. In this case, there is no last URL, right? So it is actually the last URL success is number 6 here, because then the next error is without the URL. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a wording issue here, and does it? This might then imply that we're doing the right thing. So it's the last URL, because now the one we're passing now is not the last URL. Could be. So this is at least the logic that makes it use the previous one. Yeah, I think the way this user read this, he certainly treated it like the last URL that should be there, or sort of could have been there, or something like that. So he thinks, I'm not sure it's a he, but that user thinks that we should return number 2 in this case. And I don't think it's important. I think we should just make a decision and maybe clarify the documentation somewhere. Right, and this aborts before. That's it. I think it aborts in the. If I start this again. Oh. Also need to know that it's the correct case. Here's the correct case. If I do a BT there, it's in the transfer per config. All right, set up the next one just before we delete this, and it doesn't. So yeah, it fails to create the next one. Therefore, it keeps the return code from the previous transfer. If we wanted to keep this, we would say set the return code to the result value here. Yeah, do we want that? I mean, we could do it like this. And I bet that is number 2. But is that what we want? I guess this is actually what we want. Is it? Probably. And really, I mean, it's not good. It's probably not terribly important. Yeah, exactly. The error code is a bit, I mean, the error output is a bit weird. No URL specified. And I think maybe I could actually, no URL specified. It says that. Um, that's where it says it, the proper place. But it's also using, this is the help function. That's an fprint. I think pretty much because this one, that shows pretty much runtime errors, while this shows more of a user error. Perhaps. Oh, that's difficult. But and I really don't want to just add the like this. I could do that as well, but it doesn't feel right. Because if I do that, then maybe so if I do like this, it won't say it. But if I add an output option without a URL, it will say this. If I add more output options, it will just say this more. But it felt bad to put the number there, but I actually think it looks better with the number than without it, because now suddenly we at least get them similar. So if you do this and you do, you know, like this, we get them all like this. And it also makes sense then if number 2 is the return code, that this actually shows the same way as the other ones. So I'm tempted to actually leave it like this for now, at least, because I think it makes the output better. If it feels a little bit wrong, maybe. Okay. Yeah, I'll let's make a. Sometimes we should just, you know, run the first 200 test cases just to make sure that we didn't break anything majorly just by doing this. Exactly. I figure. I mean, I could also change the code to use. You know, I could do the code like use %d and then use maybe this is actually nicer because it makes it more clear exactly what the number is. But in practice, of course, this is number 2. It won't change. So it's been the same for decades and it's going to stick. Okay, so no failure, but I can use it like this, and if we just rebuild and what I should do is once I've done this thing, run directory, that's thing, and you see there's number 2 still not hard-coded anymore. And now to do this, the way you should do it is to add a test case for it. And test cases we do like this. First we go to this, the makefile.inc in the test data directory. It lists all test files, and they are very creatively named according to numbers. So they're pretty much just, each test case has a number from 1 to 3200 right now. And there are gaps. Originally, when I started this back in that's a good question. I don't know of any other of those things. Maybe there are, because other what I think is good with this is when this function then returns an error, it'll use that error code, but let's save that for now, and let's do the test case first, and fire away a pull request, and then we'll see if it can detect any problems. So anyway, here are all test cases done. Usually when I started this adventure, I had different sequences for different kinds of tests. I started 1 to 100 were HTTP tests, and then 200 were HTTPS tests, and then file tests, and then blah blah blah. But over time, of course, I ran out of those sequences, and nothing in the numbers actually tied them to that particular function. So we gave up on that, and then pretty much any number can be whatever, because each test case is completely standalone and specifies exactly what to do. So right now, if I want to do a test case that verifies that when you do this, we get an error code 2 back. So I can just use any unused number for my new test case. I typically go with one of the lower ones, so that we fill up numbers from the start, and we're up to 419 now without any gaps. And sometimes I skip a few because I know that we have pending PRs that are using some of these, so I don't have to step on any toes. So I can, go with test 686, for example, test 686. And then this is my method of doing it. I load test 1, and I then create test 686 out of that. So now we have a test case 686, but it's wrong, right? So the name is verify return code for missing URL after next. That is what we do with this test case. So here's the test case, the URL basically, or the command line after curl, really. So let's use, we want a error that is quickly to detect and doesn't rely on any, someone could have a local host name, so let's not use that. But we could make up a fake URL scheme that doesn't exist. And then we do next, and we have no URL on the other side, right? So this is pretty much this test. And it should not be 1, it should be 2. We could also, wait, I can do it like this. Next error code. Propagate error codes better for for missing URL after next. It actually propagates other errors too, but let's ignore that for now. So I just go and commit that to make sure that we could verify that. So if I run this is the test case I want to do in my in my test. So it just verified that it returned 1 before, and now it'll return 2. So this test case should fail then without my patch. So here is how we check for error code. We check for 2. And we don't need to reply any data for this, because this test wouldn't need any server at all, actually. None. It's not HTTP, it's return code. Error code. Maybe. And we don't need to verify any protocol either, because it's not going to speak in a protocol. So we run the test case. 686. Verify return code for missing. And then just again, let's rebuild it without my patch, because if we then run the test, it fails. Woohoo! And then we add and then it struck me that I didn't do this correctly. Fixes what? Reported by whom? We are back on Firefox. It was this interesting username reported by. This is the issue. Need to remember to switch scenes properly, so I just added fixes reported by U2022D GitHub. There they are. Push this to GitHub. Boom. Switch to Firefox. Where are we? There. We can go here, and it should now be a new one to right. And just because there were more than one commit now in this branch, it'll say this instead, but I'll just sometimes GitHub is also a little bit silly, because it doesn't always see this one if that is part of a commit. I haven't really quite figured out exactly when it fails and when it doesn't. There. That's a pull request. Another pull request. So where are we on the other one? It failed somehow, right? It's still the quiche one. It's just, I don't think that's important. Add test. Still also the quiche. Yes. So yeah, sometimes some of these pending, there's some of them that are they're sort of they're rate limited somehow, so they take a slightly longer time. Yeah, so okay, that was one then, so I can assign myself. So that was one bug down, one less. I did a pull request for this one, but I didn't go through with it because I realized that I was wrong. And this is another. This is complicated and not more. This is more complicated than the other one. So basically, here's what the guy is doing. He's using the no remote header name option, and sure you can use the. This is so. What does no remote name mean? It means like this. The remote name is the longer version of the dash capital O, right? So if you do curl, wrong directory. If you do curl dash O something something, you know, we could get a download from curl. Then you do it like this, boom. And dash capital O will make it use the file name part from the URL, right? When saving the file name. Classic curl command line option, been there since forever. The opposite to dash dash, well, this is called the remote name, the full version. But this is then a boolean. So you can do no remote name, which then should be the opposite of capital O. But what's that? The opposite. So I guess in this case, you should get it to standard out. You do. And of course, we have this protection, so it won't actually send it to the terminal, which I think is fine because that's what have been just binary goo that we don't need. But I think the problem with this particular thing arises when you do like this. Hey, we want to save it. Saved. And we do and no, don't use the remote name. Is this compatible? Maybe. What will curl say? Ah, look at that. More output options than URLs. But is it really? Maybe. If you do like this. Then you get two output options, right? Because one says save it to a file, the other one says use the part from the URL. And here comes the little bit of the tricky part. This is fine, really, if you would use like two different URLs. If you would use perhaps like this, localhost and then a second URL. Because then you need two different save options with two URLs. That's fine. Boom. But using one URL, this is not fine. But this could possibly be considered fine. But why would you use this kind of construct? Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's weird. But then again, I guess I'm heavily biased because I did this, and my gut reaction when I saw this and I thought about it was, well, maybe we should just allow no remote name, because what does it actually mean? But we need that because we have this remote name all kludge, or whatever I should call it. And if you do remote name all, you can. That's one people never use, but it exists, and I did it in a moment of weakness. Well, 2 decades ago or something. So if you do no remote name all, it means use -o for all URLs, basically. So you would then use something like this, remote name all, boom, boom. it implies that you would use -o, capital O, on all of them, and then you would, bam, pretty quick downloads, and they all overwrote the same file. So bam, that works. So the no remote name now, no remote name, it pretty much says, yes, you said remote name all initially, but we want to disable it for the first save. So the first one, we will not use it. Or will it use it for? Anyway, sort of super complicated. Anyway, so that therefore it exists, and therefore it's a question: what should this command line do? Should it work? Should it not work? Did I save that now? Got so much junk in my directory. And I did look at the code for this previously, and I wandered around and I couldn't really figure out exactly how to deal with it. But here's my take now. I did think about it, and here's my current. There are a few command line options. So the problem with these output options is that they append, right? So that they don't just overwrite the previous one. We have a whole list, and we actually have this weird logic where we add new nodes to a linked list when you add a new output option or a new URL. And then so you can add output options and URLs independent of each other, right? So the first output option will map to the first URL, and the second output option to the second URL, and then it doesn't matter in which order you make them, because we build that list and they're just based on order on the command line. We could have done something more intelligent, but we're 20 years too late. So this is how it works now. So, and when you add a new output option, it creates a new node in this list. And this no remote name, if there already exists a node in the list, like this one, it'll create a new node in the list for this one. And in the end, when we iterate over the list, we get the first URL, right, with an output option, and it's fine. And then we get the next node in the list. And look at that, it's a node, but it doesn't have a URL, but it has an output option. Show a warning. This warning is also something new. It's actually just a year old or two or something, because I remember adding it not too long ago. Previously, you could add many of these output options, and curl would just silently accept that, and it would be fine. And of course, this is just a warning. It's not something that is terrible, but still a little bit confusing. So, I'm thinking maybe not, if we just do this, not create a new node if if remote name all is not set. Maybe something like that. So like this. If there was no free node, create one. So if not toggle maybe like this. If not toggle It's just a quick test first. Error, no error, no error, and 0. That's the way we want it, right? So if I do this, should then also be fine. And this is an error. Well, it's not an error, it's a warning. So yeah, that seems to work. And I want to go back to look at his use. He's had some fun command lines. Head output. Okay, that's fine. Head output remote name. Well, this is a warning, right? Because in this case he uses 2 outputs options and just 1 URL. Ooh, this one is a good one because it uses remote name all, and then should this be a warning or not? What does output and no remote name? Oh. Yeah, that's a good point. But okay, but with my fix now, if I do that, if I copy or use in this case, if I do this now, output 1 localhost and no, and then do localhost and F3 localhost, it'll right, and now I don't know which one of them that are actually sent to standard out. I guess yeah, suspected that. So Currently, since that's a HTTP, it doesn't have any content. It's just a redirect. So that's sort of yeah. So if I do this, we'll see the. So it'll just ignore. So this is possibly not what you want. I mean, I would prefer that you would do like if you want this to get on standard out, I would say that you should do this, and then I think it'll work. Oh, right, it might work. I'm not showing the shell, sorry. That's what I get when switching between these scenes. So yeah, so this is, so I basically, this one that you started out, I'll do it again. So basically if you do -o and then you do no remote name and then -o again, this no remote name, it doesn't add any output node. So actually this -o is for that URL and the second -o is for that URL, and then you have a third URL without an output option because this is not an output option. It's, I mean, it's a bit weird, maybe. And if you instead want this mil1 to go to standard out, you could do this and do localhost there and then do curl. If you would do like this, then you have the first one to a file, the second one to standard out, and the third one to a file, and that'll work. But the question is then if for example no remote name should be the equivalent of O dash. I don't think we need to do that, do we? Why would you do that? No. Unless you do remote name all, no remote name. Does this work? I think it might. Right, F1 and F3. That's F1 and F1. Yeah, because it's empty. So this one, I think this is pretty good. I think it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't work for that use case. You can't really do. You can't use this one. Doesn't work, as the no remote name won't create its own node in the list. I think this is fine because I think since we have a documented way to do it to standard out instead, I think you can just say that it's fine. And yeah, you know, and whenever I say that, someone will come along later on and say, no, I have a use case and this used to work and now it doesn't and blah blah blah. No, let's stick to this. Let's keep it simple for now, and if we have to make it more complicated or go down some dark path, let's do that later. I'll remove the braces because I enjoy making it smaller. So there. And now, since I already said I should do a test case, first we make a branch, no remote name, tool get param. Hard to describe in a single line that is supposed to be short as well. Don't add a new node for just no remote name. It's not the entire truth, but unless remote name all is used. Fixes reported by. The number is 10564 and the name is impossible to remember on GitHub. Okay. Oh, there we are. And then over again to so we're back to find another, and of course the challenge is to not use the same numbers that I've used in other pull requests, because then I get so annoying merge conflicts later on. So let's pick test 1278 for this, and again test 1, and I save it as test 1278, and now there's a test. Now I just need to make sure that it actually no remote name, that it actually tests the thing I want to test with as little activity as possible. So I wanted to do because that's the exact case, right? Yes. We save one file, we get one file, and then use no remote. So basically, I can use that's the URL I want to save. I save that to somewhere. I don't. Out test number. So we have variables in the test cases since a while back, and then I should be able to do no remote name. And here's that's the test case I want to do, and it should work. 1278. It's always suspicious right when it works on the first try. The name is wrong. Verify that an extra no remote boom. It should. Right. It doesn't change the return code, so we can't detect the problem. We need to detect the... Where does it... We need to verify standard error. So yeah, we can do that in the test case as well. So we just have to... We can skip verifying the protocol because we do that so often anyway. So we verify a standard error. Standard error, I can't type, should contain nothing. But there's this little restriction that we can't verify because if I do nothing, it'll just skip the entire. So I will do something more fancy. I will do this one. I will add output to standard error. The thing we just recently fixed in the other one. Standard error. Yes. And we shut off. We do it silent. No progress meter. And now it says yes. Oh, right. Let's add a new line. Okay, so now we verify that the standard error said that, and if we build on master instead, the test case should then say something more on standard error. Which it didn't. Why? Because it doesn't output that standard error, it shows it somewhere else. Here's the command. It actually runs in the test suite. So it's why? Output. It ruins my test. I need to look up my own documentation to remember how to do this. No output, because then it should not interfere with my output. So I also, since I switch off the verification of the data, because that's also not interesting, and still does the wrong thing. Okay. Anyway, I think I'm going to pause here because I need to go and get some food. I've been doing this now for 2:45. There's no end to this. As you can see, I've been running this non-stop for 3 hours soon. I will continue with this. Yeah, there are always things to do. I will have more things to do. So I will try to pick up some more live streams going forward. So stay tuned, and I will let you know, and we will fight more weird command line combinations going forward. Hopefully. Well, this was actually more a session, a lot of sort of oriented around curl tool things. They're usually, I would say, maybe slightly easier to debug and work with sometimes than the library ones. But another time we will go more into library junk. So thanks for watching. I need to go and get some food. I will be back with another stream soon. I really can't promise when, but maybe already Thursday if I'm up to it. See you all later, and submit your bugs and pull requests, and we can have some fun on another stream. Bye.